Today we will see how we can deploy a machine learning or deep learning model to production. We will see how we develop a model in raw Python, then create an API on top of that using Flask, and how do you create a Docker container with the API, and finally deploy it in AWS Elastic Beanstalk. So we will go through all of these steps in detail. Let's get started. First, I'm logged into my console of AWS. I'm going to go to EC2. We are going to spin up a raw EC2 machine and then test our code that we are going to deploy. So we'll create a small function, some NLP code that will run few things, then create an API. So to do all of these tasks, we are going to spin up an Ec2 instance. So an Ec2 is a virtual machine in the AWS cloud. So you can assume that it is just a provisioned Linux machine or Ubuntu machine or any of other configurations. You can spin up a virtual machine on the AWS cloud, and you can run tasks or do any other stuff that you want on there. So we are going to launch an Ec2 instance. So primarily, since we are going to use Docker, I'm trying to find a machine that already has Docker installed in it. So I'm gonna search with Docker and press enter, and I'm gonna choose this deep learning AMI Amazon Linux 2. So I'm gonna select that, and I'm gonna choose T2 medium and click on configure instance details. This looks good. 90 GB, this looks good. Configure security group. So one important thing to note here is I'm going to create a new security group and call it deep learning production deployment. I will show you why we are creating a new security group. Because we are going to add few more rules to expose port 5000 and port 80 so that we can host our API later. So I'm going to click on review and launch, and I'm going to choose an existing key pair that I already created. So if you want to create a new pair, you can create a new key pair, but I'm choosing an existing key pair and I'm clicking on launch instance. So click here to see that the instance is being launched. For simplicity, I can rename this as deep learning production deployment. So we'll just wait a second and come back. Now that we have our Linux instance running, let's log into the Linux instance. So this is the public DNS, and I'm going to use PuTTY since I am on Windows machine, and I've already configured it to use the key pair that I have already, and so I'm going to click on open. So you can see that I'm already logged into the EC2 machine. I'm going to just click on which Python. So I'm in Anaconda 3 bin Python. So I'm going to just type which Python 3 as well. So Anaconda bin Python 3. Great. So far so good, and we will get started with our code and see how we test the code on the EC2 machine, then create an API out of it. Now that we are in the Anaconda environment, we will see how we can create a new environment in Anaconda. So just type conda create -- name and deploy DL production. That's the environment name. And Python is equal to Python 3.6. So it is going to create a new environment with Python 3.6. So why we are creating an environment is since we want to run our new code and install libraries as necessary to run the new code, we are going to create a new environment and we are going to operate within that environment. Now that environment is created, we are going to activate the environment. So type source activate deploy DL. Let's check the, yeah. So deploy DL production, that's the environment. So now we are in the environment of deploy DL production. So you can see if you type which Python 3, previously it used to show a different path. Now it shows Anaconda 3 environments deploy DL production bin Python 3. So we have activated our environment and now we are going to run our new script, develop and run the new script in here. Now that we have created our environment, let's just create a directory, production deployment. So let's cd into our directory production deployment. I'm just creating this directory so that we can place all our files, the Docker container files as well as the code that we are going to deploy, everything inside this. We will operate from this directory. Now I've created a simple file app called app.py with some spacy code. So this is an NLP model that just runs on some text and it's gonna identify the entities in the text and print them out. We will see how the output looks like and all of those, but for now I'm using PyCharm and I created a small python.py file, app.py file in my laptop. Now I'm using Windows machine, so what I'm going to do is use WinSCP to transfer the file from my laptop to the EC2 machine that we spun up. So let's go back and find the EC2 address. So I'm gonna hit on login. As you can see, I have my production deployment folder here. I'm going to move inside that, and on my desktop I have this DL deployment production, and I have app.py file. I'm going to just drag and drop the app.py file. Now if I go back to my Linux machine, previously when I typed ls there was nothing. Now app.py file should be here. So we have transferred the app.py file onto here. Now we are going to run the app.py file and test it out and make sure that it is working. The next step after that would be to create an API out of that app.py file. But for now, we are going to just run app.py file and make sure that it is running. Now that we have our app.py file, let's attempt to run it. So python app.py. Remember that we are in the same environment, deploy DL production. So if you try to run python app.py, we haven't installed anything through pip or anything, so we will get errors. So it says that module spacy could not be found. So let's try to see which pip, and make sure that when you type which pip, it is pointing to the pip that is inside the deploy DL production, so we can see that it is correct. So let's try pip install spacy is equal to 2.1.0. So right now we are installing spacy. So looks like spacy is installed. Let's try to run same python app.py. Now you will get another error which says it cannot find the en_core_web_small model. So let's try to install that as well with this command. So which Python? It's pointing to the same Python that is inside our DL. Now I'm going to run this command python-m spacy download en_core_web_small. So it is downloading that model currently, and it will link that model. Now when you run python app.py, you see that everything is correct. So it is running and giving an output. So you can see that Apple, UK and 1 billion. Apple is identified as organization, UK is identified as geopolitical location, then 1 billion is identified as money. So if you go back to the code, we gave this text, Apple is looking at buying UK startup for 1 billion. So it identified Apple as organization, UK as a location, and 1 billion as money. So that's what we are printing it here. So far what we could get was we could run the code and print the output, and we could get it running. So we are running basic Python code, basic deep learning code from spacy and printing some output. Now this concludes the first part, and what we are going to do next is try and convert this into an API, so that instead of hard coding this text that you have here on Apple, can you send any random text and can you retrieve back the can you retrieve back the entities, and whatever you see as printed here, can you return that in a JSON format as an API? So we are going to use Flask and convert this into an API. That's what we are going to see next.